All opinions expressed by Jose and Ben or any of the guests on this show are solely their opinion and their opinion alone. Their opinions do not reflect the opinions of any other sponsors or other parties involved in the recording of this show. Do not treat any opinion expressed by Jose and Ben as a specific endorsement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy. Their expressions of their opinion on this show is purely for informational purposes. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Thriller Premium. Welcome to Thriller Premium.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Talking in Bits, where we walk you through Bitcoin bit by bit so we can provide you with the information you need to succeed and persist. Back with episode 32. Got Ben in the house as always.
32, man.
32 is good.
Whose jersey is that?
Magic?
Emmitt Smith?
Nah, 22. Is it Magic? Magic
Yeah,
Johnson had
Magic
32.
Johnson, yep.
Karl Malone.
Yep.
Why we got just basketball players is all I know.
He went out without a ring, bro.
Yeah. In the NFL, Edgerrin James was 32. That's the only 32 I can think of in the NFL. I'm sure there's more. But episode 32, man. How are you?
How are you, man? How's Texas?
Doing good, man. Texas is the Bitcoin capital of the world.
Yeah.
It's very apparent that if you're on Twitter, you don't need to. That's not a surprise or a shocker, but it was good. I was doing a lot of work, so I'm looking forward to going back to Texas when I can vacation, when I can have fun, when I can let loose and not have, not a rigid schedule.
We should probably plan a podcast trip out there.
We should do something out there because it's really fun out there. Shout out to the podcasters out there. I'm going to shout him out. Carr, he's also a Bitcoin journalist down there who has a podcast network. I've been talking to him a lot. And, same vision as ours. We want to educate on Bitcoin to masses. He's a big fan of the show.
Cool, man.
He's a big fan of our direction, of our art, of our content. So shout out to him.
Cool, man. What's going on?
Yeah, man. We should set something up out there. But, Austin was great. Just want to be chilling, man. Don't want to be. I do want to be working, but not when I'm trying to be chilling. Those things. Yeah. Like, do I get plastered and wake up in the morning and have to grind it out with a headache, or do I just call it a night a little early so I could be super productive? Mm-hmm. I chose the super productive part because it's called for me to do so. But let's book something, man. And have some fun.
Let's do it.
It's fun.
Let's do it.
Episode 32, we kind of wanted to expound on a few more of the basic things. I think that was the idea that you were approaching, which I think is a good idea always. I think as the price continues to come back up, more people become more interested, more alerted. And if our sole purpose in this podcast is to educate and to push forward, why the hell not just go over the basics before we cover all the big headlines that are going on? So what did you want to get into first?
Yeah.
What we were talking about before the mic?
Yeah. Continuing from last week, right? Where to buy Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin? Why Bitcoin? How to take possession of your Bitcoin?
Yeah.
We were texting. What about nodes? What about miners? How do they get reward? What do they do? Just a breakdown in general of like, hey, what is Bitcoin? How does it work? And why is it important?
Yeah. That kind of leans into what we were talking about before we went live. What you were saying, what Satoshi built, what was able to see. That incentive system, I think, is the underlining aspect there.
Absolutely. So, Bitcoin was built in the face of Wall Street getting bailed out with taxpayer money. And, to be building this Bitcoin system, even to have it as like an idea while all this turmoil is going on and all this crazy stuff is going on financially where like big bankers win and the little guy loses every time. So to have this idea of like peer-to-peer exchange of currency, exchange of value, stateless, trustless, permissionless, borderless. Like, I don't know, imagine designing that and then kind of, looking into the political climate of the day. Like, it had to feel good, man.
I think Satoshi's only problem was figuring out how to make it work. But I think all those things were trying to get solved before that. Yeah. Back to the basics. Satoshi didn't create everything that's involved in Bitcoin. But he was able to be like, the
producer.
The stitcher, the person
producer.
that was able to put it together. Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually. Yeah, make the bass ride with the drum.
I guess the conductor, right?
Right.
With a symphony, where it's like, all right, I'm going to take SHA 256. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get miners.
Right. And I'm not even the guy to even ask or even think about this question, but I wonder how many failed attempts before him, right? Like how many people tried it.
Yeah.
I mean, this peer-to-peer thing, because as we know, cypherpunks have been around, I think since the 70s, maybe even before that, right? When computers started to take off. And they were always on this mission to separate from the state. It was always, they saw something that a lot of people didn't see. So I'm with you, man. The DJ Khaled of it, I guess, or the Kanye West of it, he was able to put something together that obviously allows you and I to come in here week after week and be able to talk about it, and allows an endless amount of content to continuously be released about it because it's that special. It's that one of a kind. Super cool. So yeah, from there, I think the incentive system is big, but the proof of work mining system is big. I'm not the biggest, I'm a miner, but I'm not the biggest of miners, but I think we could at least cover the basics of mining. So you want to kind of cover mining real quick?
I'm going to let you handle that.
All right.
So you have miners, and they continuously...
they try to hash out a function. Right. So they're computating... They're trying to figure out and somebody will probably correct me on this, they're trying to figure out the correct hash to match the next block or to present it as a presenter block. And it involves nonces, right? It involves like a certain, when the difficulty drops, there's more zeros added to that number or whatever. So this is, that's what they're trying to do. Now, the reason they're trying to do that is because of proof of work. And the proof of work system is super, super big and some would argue the biggest part of Bitcoin because it basically builds into the system a fluctuation pattern, which is like the best analogy I've ever heard is like playing, craps at the table, right? Like when the difficulty is really high, then there's a lot more rollers winning the jackpot. There's a lot more opportunities, whatever. Is that the analogy, or is it the other way around?
I think it's vice versa.
Yeah. So the less people, right? The less opportunities, the less chances the dice is rolling. And the opposite is true. Go ahead.
Bitopoly gets it right. The game when
that's a good entry.
So in Bitopoly, you have your difficulty rate.
The difficulty.
Right, and those are cards 1 through 6.
Yep.
And every time you go for a Bitcoin, periodically you'll get a card that is
There's more players hashing.
There's more players hashing.
So the game gets harder now.
Exactly. So it's a difficulty adjustment card.
Correct.
And then it takes out, either 1 through 6. And by the time you're, halfway, if there are 3 cards left, say 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to roll, 1, 2, 3s and roll those instead of rolling the 4 through 6. And then when it gets more difficult, it's like, all right, you have to roll a 1 or everything else is dead.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what it is. It's a probability thing. It's like once Bitcoin sees that, right, it needs to keep its cap set. It needs to keep that every 10 block reward set. So yeah, what happens is that if more people are winning Bitcoin, right, then the difficulty is already set. And so what I wanted to say before is the big key there is the difficulty adjustment that Satoshi came up with. The proof of work was already done by Adam Back, I believe. But the difficulty adjustment is the key thing that makes that happen. So yeah, if there's a lot of people winning all the Bitcoin, then it needs to be able to make the game harder. And how it makes the game harder is by making that, last hash that much harder to find. So more hashing has to happen and more rolls have to happen if you want to use the game analogy because it's harder to find the last 3 cards, the last 3 numbers. And in that situation, that evens out the game and provides incentive and many different things. But it keeps everything in line.
Absolutely. Here's a practical example.
Sure.
I think I had 9 rolls in Bitopoly.
Yep.
And I went like 0-9.
Yeah, because the difficulty was that high. Yeah. So now the amount of Bitcoin that's being, I guess handed out, to use a simple
rewarded.
term. Yeah, rewarded is a good word. Is obviously being kept in check. It's not running loose. It's optimized to run every 10 minutes or so. A block is found, and that's how the difficulty adjustment is set. Is depending on the average of how long it's taken to find blocks. I think there's a formula: blocks plus the amount of hash that's on the network. There's a formula there, and this is very basics. This gets very complicated. I'm sure even you and I are wrong on a few of these things.
Yeah.
But mining is basically, in a simple nutshell, computers trying to figure out a problem, and if they can solve that problem, they will be rewarded with solving that problem. And the solution to the problem is gathering a bunch of transactions, doing the hash, presenting that block to the network, and the network has its own rules to figure out what's a good block and a bad block, and that either gives it a green light, reward goes to you, or go try again and go to the mempool and pick up more transactions, build out the hash at the top, present another candidate block, I believe is what they call it. And then the system consensus rules, which is why consensus is huge, decides check, all the properties of that block is legit. Let's roll with it. It gets rewarded the block reward.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I need this on a whiteboard. Or in animation.
I'm sure I'm glad you brought up the card example. That's a good way to make it easy, but
that makes it easy for me. But this other stuff, I need animation or a whiteboard.
It's hard, man. Yeah. I don't even get it. I do get it, but there's so many things that are detached, right? So many questions with all this stuff. I mean, that's the thing. People listen to the show and they may be like, oh, well, he may know a lot about it. That doesn't mean that I know all the intricacies of it, though.
Yeah.
And mining is just another one of those rabbit holes where you kind of choose to go down it. And when you go down it, you find out a bunch of different stuff. But I think that difficulty adjustment put together with proof of work is the backbone of kind of the whole infrastructure. It's like what keeps it fair. It's what keeps it smart. It's what keeps it going.
Yeah, well, case in point, we just saw China's miners come offline.
Right.
40% of the network comes offline, migrates. In the meantime, miners get paid more, right?
Yep.
So on S19s, you were going from 80,000 sats a day to, it was up to 100. I got 104,000 sats.
So there's less players in the game.
Right, because less players are in the game.
Yeah.
They had all those miners from China getting airlifted to the different places, America, Kazakhstan, all these different locations, right? And once they get plugged back in, then the reward goes down because more miners are taking sats every day.
Well, the cool part about it is, and back to the difficulty adjustment, is you only reap those rewards for so much time.
Yeah.
Right? Because the difficulty adjustment is built for that. When everybody went off of the grid or whatever, until the next difficulty adjustment, which is what, 2,000, a little over 2,000 blocks, which is about 2 weeks, that resets.
Yeah.
So if you were at the crap table, let's keep using the crap table, and everybody left, you were getting lucky until the reset happened. But then the reset happened, the new dealer got taken out, swapped for the new person, then you started losing because more players started coming to the board.
Got it.
Or the odds started to get more even. So incentive. If you're online and something happens to the other party, you reap the benefits. But Bitcoin is always there to correct it, to say, hey, wait a minute, well, you can't reap them forever because that's unfair. And this system is built on straightforwardness and that. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
We can have these conversations for hours.
Yeah, man.
But miners are different than mining. Go ahead.
Let's talk about why mining is important. Does mining secure the network?
It secures the network only because these miners, which means people like you and I and people that are willing to put these machines to work, because machines still need to be operated. That's where we come in. What mining does is it allows the transactions to keep rolling and blocks to be found and blocks to be produced. And when that happens is the good analogy that I like to see is it takes so much power and energy to get a block that once a transaction settles, that's why you got to wait 3 or 4 confirmations sometimes, because the theory behind that is that 4 confirmations is 4 blocks. It's damn near impossible to be able to reverse the blockchain 4 blocks to be able to change that transaction. So that's why that's like set in stone. Like when we talk about set in stone, this is like the best example of it. So
it's not Ethereum. It can't go 2 weeks back.
Well, it can, because by blockchain nature, Bitcoin can do that. It can't because we delegate to consensus instead of ownership or stake in that situation. So the technology allows for Bitcoin to technically do that, but it would never happen because consensus says otherwise. But yeah, the thought process is that when you get a confirmation, that's another block that did all the computation, that put all that computational power to prove that it's valid to be a next block on the chain. So if you think about like a block that's 5 to 10 blocks ago, no computer, even with a 51% attack, can change that transaction. So say a 51% attack comes in, they start changing the first block, the last one on the chain, right? And then they get to the even as far back as that one or whatever. 5 blocks back, the system is going to catch on that this 51% attack is happening. Game over. That's why it doesn't work that way. So that's where securing the system is what miners do. That's a long-winded answer to say, that's why Bitcoin mining is big. They continue to add blocks, which continues to validate our transactions and secure the network with their hashing power. So the more hashing, back to the crap players, the more hashing, the more security, because the more players are making sure that the transactions are valid and they're honoring that system. And we can get into nodes, and that's the next step in that process.
Before we get to nodes, as you're talking about this, we've talked about in the past. I think you quoted someone where they had said like the U.S. and the military are on this side, Bitcoin and the miners are on the left side, and like one enforces with force, and terror and death and doom to secure its dollar, and Bitcoin just uses miners and energy.
Yeah, the simple way, and I don't want to butcher
it's peaceful,
that. Right, what I got out of that whole thing, and not to butcher, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but yeah, it's basically that the amount of work that's exerted to get a certain result is the outcome. So the military, the dollar is reigning across the globe because the military has more energy and more oomph and more power than any other military in the world.
Yeah.
So they could make that dollar be the consensus across the board. They'll force consensus because of their power, of their proof of work. So similar in mining, the miners with their hash rate are that power that makes that consensus, that truth, like their GG would say, that one truth, it makes it permanent and it makes it real. But like you said, one is obviously just bullying, and the other one is just an open consensus network where we agree to those rules, so it applies to all of us uniquely because we understand the property. And if you're watching this show, you're gonna understand this soon too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's miners do a huge role. You can give examples on how people can get in on mining, since this is a beginner show.
Yeah. So there, you can mine yourself, right? So you can order some mine. I mean, you can have a computer. Yeah, all right, let's be real. You can have a laptop, computer, cell phone. You can mine on any of those things.
Yep.
You're really not going to reap rewards unless you're on a high-end laptop, high-end computer that has, multiple video card slots.
Right.
So, back to episode, 1 through 5, 1 through 8, I was talking about looking into mining, right? But the issue was video cards are sold out everywhere, and then they're sold on the secondhand market, right? So to create something is a little challenging. So that instead of using a computer, you can just buy a mining rig like an S9, M31S, from WhatsMiner, Bitmain, whatever.
Yep.
And you can mine in your house. Out here, it's pretty expensive for electric. So if you're in, Texas, Colorado, your electric is cheaper and it's probably worth doing there. Or there are companies like Compass Mining and others where they'll do the mining for you. They'll keep your miner on site, and should you want to take possession of it, they'll send it. But you get plugged into a pool of your choice, and you can send sats to your cold storage every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's another thing called cloud mining, which I don't know too much about, but it seems like there's, I don't know, I think less reward for one, but I think it's also cheaper to get into versus like, hey, a $10,000 S19 with Compass who's going to host it for you versus cloud mining. I just don't know too much about it, but I think it's like third person mining.
I've heard only bad things, but I've never done the homework to try to figure it out.
I've seen nothing but bad things about it.
Yeah, so cloud mining is a no-go in my opinion, unless somebody can tell me otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah, that person has not existed.
Same here.
Those are ways to get into mining, but it's very important to not solo mine unless you have awareness of what solo mining is, and unless you have a boatload of hashing power. But yeah, pools is the best way. That's a different rabbit hole. There's certain pools that honor certain things. There's other pools that don't. I go back and forth between there's different payout models too. Different episodes. It's very complicated. I go between one that's a steady flow of sats, but I also jump back to Slush. I think ultimately Slush is my number one user, and I think they're ahead of the game, and they've been around the longest. They were one of the small blockers.
Originals.
And they signaled for Taproot, the very first company to do it.
I like it.
I'm very honorable in that sense.
Yeah, when I hear stuff like that, I'm learning more about the block size wars and historically what's happened in Bitcoin. And when I see this company was on the right side when it came to like events, it's like, they kind of earned your respect.
It matters.
Earn your business.
We said it here. I've said it a gazillion times. It's Bitcoin only company for me. I'm not dealing with any company that's incentives is somewhere else. I've talked to people early in Coinbase. That one person early in Coinbase that was like, I was there for the conversations when the shift happened. Yeah. When it was like, we're gonna shitcoin. Like that happened in a heartbeat. Yeah. And that just shows that, they don't believe in what Bitcoin can do, but they also don't know the asset well enough to put 100% into it. Yeah. So yeah, man, I'm with Slush. It is a roller coaster ride, but I talked to a good pleb miner friend of mine that over time has given me numbers that say it always ends up being more than Slush. Yeah. It always ends up being more. It may not be on the day-to-day, but in the long run, if you're willing to just separate from the app and just kind of let it roll, you're going to make more because it's a better reward. You get a piece of the block per your hashing, not just a steady, slow rollout. An easy example is if you were expecting 25,000 from like a F2 pool or a pooling because they give you like a set kind of amount throughout the day or whatever. On that lucky, good slush pool there, you could have made double that, triple that. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you got to roller coaster ride it. but their ethics stand tall. Plus, their V2 Stratum, which that's not beginner stuff. That's how they connect to the pool and that security that goes in between. There's something called like an in-between attack where people can steal your hashing power, like as it connects.
That's crazy.
Well, it just makes sense the way the internet pipeline works. So Slush, as far as I'm aware, is the only one that's ahead of that and has their own encrypted back-end network. I can't say enough good things about Slush. The only reason I jump over to another pool at all is just how high I'm paying for the ones that I have at the house, the price. So it's like, I'd rather just get something that I know at the end of the month I could do billing with, like accounting with, than just go for the roller coaster ride. But as soon as that changes, it's Slush all the way. And it's probably a 90% chance that when these Compass mining ones go up, they're going to be Slush connected as well.
Cool.
So yeah,
that's any day now, huh?
Yeah, I'll give it live to the listeners. Their South Carolina plant, I guess, didn't get approved.
Oh.
So they gave really good options, and this is why I'm not going to bash.
Is that why they had a 5-hour? They had a Twitter Spaces recently that was really long.
Probably.
And I kept seeing everyone talk about, the way they handled this. I respect them.
Yeah, so I guess I'm on board with that. So they shot out an email saying that anybody who was going live August 31st is not going to go live. South Carolina didn't get approved because of whatever. But their 3 options were very generous and very good. And I'll go through them here just so people know. This is good customer support, in my opinion. So they reached out and said, you have 3 options. Option 1, you wait till the latest October 31st, but we still give you $500 credit for hosting and electricity per miner.
That's pretty fair.
Fair. Second one
that covers a few months.
And you can use it to buy another miner. They did give that 3rd option.
That's
there.
cool.
Cool. That buys you a couple months. You just got to wait a couple months. So I'm cool with that. Second option was, I don't even think there was a third, but the second option, I believe, is we send you your miner. Gotcha. We still give you the 500, but it stays on here. Like you got to use it for next month. Right, you got credit.
That's fair.
But we can send you your miner, and when availability opens up,
we'll let you know.
You can send it back.
Yeah.
Like, so you could connect whenever you want. That was a good one.
I think that's gracious.
And if there was a third one, I don't remember, but it was along that line. Actually, I think I got a follow-up email that a third one would be is, hey, we could put your miner on the market and you can sell it.
Gotcha.
Then they had like a form for that.
Gotcha.
That's very good. I mean, if they were saying, hey, you got to, or we don't know, or to be determined, or 6 months, I wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt, and I would cash out in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But yeah, you tell me October 31st, and once I go online, I basically got the next 4 months for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's the right response.
I think so.
Was it like their facility didn't get approved?
I think only the South Carolina one.
Gotcha. It's like a political thing?
I actually think it was like a wattage specification thing. Like it didn't meet the demand or something like that. That was supposed to be necessary. I don't know though.
So listening to Preston Pish and Jason Williams, Williams was talking about how these locations kind of get built out.
Yep.
And they're extremely, your average miner now runs 3,200 kilowatts, up to 3,500 kilowatts. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of power.
Yep.
So you're doing with 10,000 units. Yeah. Like your electricity going into that place has to be
spot on.
Like it has to get there, and then it has to basically circle that whole area. Like in your house, if you plug in, something that draws too much power, you'll literally, bust a circuit or a fuse or whatever.
For sure.
And then, your downstairs doesn't work. So now imagine doing that with 10,000 times the electric that's in your house. Probably more, to be honest.
Yeah, no.
Probably 100,000.
It's super complex to set these places up, I'm sure. So I wasn't mad. I like the response.
Yeah.
I like the options. I like the credit. And I like the fact that the one option where it was like, man, if I was really upset, send me my miner.
Mm-hmm.
I like that option.
Yeah.
It's a super powerful option. I didn't take it because we talked about price.
Yeah.
But, it's really cool that they did that. I wanted to bring up something that Huddle Tarantula brought up and posted, and it could cap off this mining conversation is you're only a miner if you're mining sovereignly on your own. Yeah. Other than that, you're just investing in a mining operation. I think that's very fair. I think that's very descriptive. And I think that's the best explanation I've seen on home mining versus not mining. The miners are yours at Compass, but that is a mining operation.
Yeah.
You're plugging in. You're investing in that operation.
Yep.
At home, you are, whether pleb or not, you are a sovereign miner.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to use that from here on out forward. Huddle Tarantula, pleb miner himself, is the guy for that. I'll take that. That nails it in for me. But
I saw it. I think I almost responded to it.
I don't think there's a response, but yeah, what was the response? You remember?
I can remember. Like I remember looking at it, and I think like going to respond or something like that.
I think I just liked it because I had nothing to say. I was like, boom, boom, because that's a conversation. And I think we've had it before. With like what makes a pleb minor or whatever. A lot of people going around calling themselves minor. I didn't know how to separate those two things.
Yeah,
that separated from.
Yeah, I mean, is it in your possession? No, then it's not. You know what I'm saying?
Like, right.
You're not about
but
that.
But people
life.
say that they're mining and automatically get turned into minors. And those are two different people.
Right.
As we know, miners are like what I call the artisans, right? Like the handyman of the Bitcoin world. So that needs to be separated from the guy that's setting up and the CEO studio up there paid up that has miners running in the background. He is not a miner. He's an investor in a mining operation. But before that definition, probably would have been called a miner, and everybody would have been like, cool, he's a miner. Yeah. So, yeah, shout out to that. I don't know if you want to move on to nodes.
Yeah, let's talk about nodes.
Yeah, nodes are what, I've heard it said in different ways. I don't really know one way that I really like, but it's your vote in the system, right?
Gotcha.
Like, on a personal level, it's the best way to verify your transactions and your UTXOs. Just think about you trust the bank now with all your transactions. You don't really know if those transactions are clear or not. You just trust that they say that. With a node in the Bitcoin world, I don't have to trust Cash App's server or wherever they're sourcing their API. I could just trust my own copy of the blockchain from the very Genesis block all the way to 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago to the last block.
So let's be practical about this.
Sure.
I open up Cash App. I send you Bitcoin to your address.
Yep.
Can you then pull that up on a node and verify that, or would it have to come from like cold storage?
No. Any transaction that goes on the Bitcoin blockchain, you can verify on the node.
Okay.
So most people just trust it because there's only one blockchain, and if Cash App is doing the right thing, then
they're pulling off that.
Yeah, then the transaction is going into the Bitcoin blockchain and no other one.
Yeah.
But if it were to be going to another one, and you trusted Cash App for too long, or the transactions were clearing for whatever reason, I don't think that's Bitcoin would do that. It would be a Cash App problem, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like say at the very end they had a bug where every time they send a transaction ID out, it added like a number at the end, and that kind of screwed things up, right? And maybe on your end you were seeing confirmation.
Yeah.
The way to make sure 100% is to go to your own node, your own copy. Therefore, you would have the block hash. You can find the block. You can find the transaction, and you could be like, "Nah, this is legit. 100% UTXO."
And now a way to check from say a Cash App or another app. Typically, when you send a transaction, it'll say "view on" whatever site. So is that their way of showing you the confirmation for that transaction?
There's just a lot of APIs that source the blockchain. So usually what they do is they give you a link to like Block Explorer.
Yep, I was going to say Block.
Yeah. So they'll give you like the transaction ID because every transaction once it gets in has a transaction ID.
Gotcha.
And you can run that. And those APIs like Block Explorer, just searching the blockchain. So they look for the header, they look for the transaction or whatever. But there you go. You're trusting whatever they source as the API.
Gotcha.
In your own home, your hard drive owns the blockchain.
Gotcha.
So now you're sending commands, actually like this one, you're sending these commands out on Bitcoin that are basically saying, hey, go vet, go search, go query is the more proper term. Go query that database. Here's the hash. Here's the identifier. Here's the transaction.
Yeah.
Please find that for me. And if it's your own hard drive, who tampered with it? Nobody tampered with that. You got the core, the Bitcoin core. There's also a prune node, and I don't want to get too far, but you don't have to own the whole blockchain.
Okay.
A prune node basically has just like a subset of blocks.
Yeah.
And then when you give it the information, hey, look for this hash, it basically says, oh, all right, I got that. Like, I just need that one. I don't
probably
need
like the last year and not the last 10.
Sure. I think you can actually set the parameters. It could be last 5, last 10. So those are called prune nodes, and they're not that big. But you can do that too.
Now, what does something like that cost? To be practical.
First of all, you can do it from your laptop. You can set up a Bitcoin core node from your laptop and a prune node. There's a mining node. There's a bunch of different nodes.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about here is a Bitcoin full node. And that Bitcoin full node you can do on your laptop. But if you don't want it on your laptop because of problems I'm having, 200. If you don't have a hard drive, then $225.
Yeah.
Maybe getting cheaper by the day.
Yeah.
Because you don't need one of the SSD
with a hard drive.
Yeah, you don't need an SSD hard drive. You just need a pretty good, HDD. So you could get those. The block side, the block. The whole blockchain is probably like 400 gigs. It's approaching 400 gigs.
Yeah. So with a 1 terabyte, you'd be fine.
That's recommended. You get a 1 terabyte, you got yourself at least maybe another 10 years.
With video, I'm rocking like 8 terabytes. So.
Oh, you don't want that running with video. But you'll be good forever. And
so that's a device that connects to, like if you didn't want to use your laptop,
you could buy. So the smallest computer you can probably buy right now is a Raspberry Pi. That's why a lot of people think they're very cool.
Yeah.
Even Get Umbro, which is the fancier UI one, I think they still give you a list and they make you buy a Raspberry Pi.
Gotcha.
Because a Raspberry Pi is this whole laptop just in a chipset.
Yep.
And then you could add TVs to it.
It's a small physical device.
Right. So this is strong enough to run a Bitcoin core because as Satoshi built it, he built it small enough and light enough, is what they call it, to be able to function. Mm-hmm. So you get a Raspberry Pi, it's like $50.
Cool.
You buy a case for the hard drive.
Yep.
By the way, I recommend Raspberry Blitz. If you go check the Raspberry Blitz on GitHub, he'll give you the whole list of what to buy. I'm not recommending anything else, but there is other ones like Get Umbro and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, you buy the hard drive external. So you got to buy a case for the hard drive. So that's probably another $15. You could buy a screen for the Raspberry Blitz. And a starter kit and like an SD card and stuff. It's about $220.
Okay.
And that'll get you a full Bitcoin node. Raspberry Blitz though, and we can move on after, gets you a full Bitcoin node with a Lightning node built on top of it. We don't have to go there yet. We can finish on node. I don't know if you had anything else on nodes.
No, that's pretty much it.
It's basically your voting system. If you are a node, you can verify transactions 100%. Nobody can ever lie to you because that's your copy of the blockchain. And on another level, like on the Bitcoin as a big consensus network level, it's your stake, it's your vote.
Yeah.
You update whenever new consensuses come around. Taproot is the latest example. Mm-hmm. And if Ben chooses to update his node, he'll have access to Taproot. That means he voted that he wants Taproot to be activated in all his transactions. Cool part about this is if he doesn't want Taproot, for the most part, probably a few minor outlier situations, you still have access to the Bitcoin network. So you have voted to not do Taproot, but you accept any type of transaction before Taproot 1,000%.
Gotcha.
So that's voting at its finest.
Yeah.
I could not do this. And maybe down the road you would have to update because they're going to box you out because the features don't work anymore. Cool. Mm-hmm. But at the very moment, the near moment, you don't have to run and update your node. You don't have to have Taproot. Most people are not going to be using Taproot day one.
Yeah.
But that's
they'll make the move eventually.
On a node is a voting system. Nodes actually keep the miners in check too. It keeps that because when a miner presents the block and says, "Hey, here are the transactions that I got from the mempool. Here's the hash that I computed. Is this correct?" The nodes have set the rules that get verified.
Gotcha.
So it has to have a hash header. It has to have less than 1 megabyte transactions. It has to have this type of information. It has to have the previous block info. Right. And then we agreed as nodes to say, check, accepted block.
Yeah.
Now let's let the other nodes know. Let's let my other peoples know that this happened. And then that's how we spread that transaction from node to node to node. So nodes are very powerful. I think it's the only way, I could be wrong, that peer-to-peer actually works. Mm-hmm. Without nodes, there is no peer-to-peer. There'll be somebody that's controlling the decision-making.
Yeah.
But now I can reach out to you sort of in like the Napster days and all that. I can reach out to you in the background and say, don't worry about them. They don't need to know that we're sharing this. You got it. Why can't I have it?
Yeah.
Right? So that's what it is. You got a copy of the blockchain with the new block. Why can't I have it? And you're going to be like, oh, here you go.
Gotcha.
Here's a new copy.
Yeah.
Download
sense.
it. Circle every 10 minutes, man. Super hot.
Lightning. Layer 2. What sits on top of Bitcoin? So to preface Lightning, a lot of people say, oh, Bitcoin is too slow. And rightfully so. Bitcoin, its number one or a main priority is security.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not designed to transact instantaneously. It's designed for security.
Right.
So it's slow. But now we have layer 2, which everyone explains as like the rails of a new network. And
I don't like the word slow, by the way, but I
yeah. I'm with you. I mean,
because if you talk about like ACH wire slow, that's slow, right?
Yeah,
so you talk about 10 minutes, like, all right, but go ahead. I do know what you mean.
I like that. I like that. But so Lightning is so fast that people can be across the world from each other, and they can literally through the Strike app and through Lightning send cents to each other instantaneously. Yeah. No third party.
Do the things that don't require 10 minutes of time to like if I send $5,000, I'll wait 10 minutes for that to clear up. Yeah. But if I'm trying to send you 50 cents or coffee money
or the street vendor.
Yeah, or the street vendor
selling whatever.
I don't want to do that stuff for sure. And Lightning is going to be the next few features. I got a few things that I want to bring up that I actually saw brought up. I don't know in depth about them, but they go with Lightning that are super cool. I heard some talks on it. But Lightning is that. So when we talk about the node, we get the full Bitcoin blockchain. That's the full Bitcoin node. Lightning needs to sit on top of that or find some way to vet the blockchain, because what Lightning does is it deposits an opening transaction onto the blockchain and a closing transaction onto the blockchain. So that's the only 2 times a Lightning channel, as they like to say, communicates with this main Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah.
So, we're going to get into why it's good, but in order for a Lightning node to work, it needs to be, speaking to a Bitcoin full core node, because it needs to inject these transactions and see the fees and all that. Once these channels are open, once Ben and I agree, we liquidate each end of the tunnel. You put in 5 Bitcoin, I put in 5 Bitcoin, we put it in. This channel gets open worth of 10 Bitcoin, right? And that means is that Ben and I have the liquidity to pass around 10 Bitcoins on the network. And that happens instantly. Why does that happen instantly? Because it's a tab. We're passing receipts, and every time you get a receipt, you're not adding them up.
Yeah.
You're erasing your total, and you're updating your total to the fresh new tab.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not stacking receipts here. You're just wiping that out and getting your new updated quantity. Now, the cool thing is that it's a multi-sig setup where it safeguards there. If Jose ever tries to cheat Ben out of that deal somehow, some way, the system is set up for me to lose, and I lose all my liquidity, and Ben gets the full 10 Bitcoins. So it's a tab that's honorable on both ends. And this is way too technical of a conversation, but it's honorable on both ends because of a multi-signature setup that you guys do when you open up these channels.
I like it.
Just know that you can't get robbed.
Yeah.
Not that I've heard yet of anything.
And then the benefit of us doing that would be we get rewarded.
Yeah, it's so instant settlement. The benefit of that is that because you're not relying on every transaction going on a block, meaning that every new block is every 10 minutes you need it to settle, this tab gets passed and forth, and we've already agreed that every transaction we do is okay.
Yeah.
So it settles instantaneously. And then whenever Ben or Jose want to choose to say, hey, I'm going to walk away from this tab, and it could be years, it could be whenever, then we'll settle on the closing transaction of the block, and you will present what you're left over with, and I'll present what I'm left over with, and we walk away harmoniously with what our tab says.
And so basically, when you're using Lightning, there are fees, right? So I guess
very nominal.
They're tiny. Yeah. Is the profit the fees?
On what?
Like if we opened a channel,
it's only on for the miners, you mean?
No. Like for I don't know. I've heard of Lightning channels where people open them with, say, 10 Bitcoin.
Yep.
Like they're providing the liquidity.
Yep.
Do they leave, a year from now, if people use that channel, they'll have more than 10 Bitcoin, correct?
Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah. I don't know who the big dogs in Lightning routing fees are or whatever,
Gotcha.
but yeah, that's what makes Lightning actually work, because the next question after that would naturally be is, cool, if you and Ben are going back and forth, but what if I want to go do a Lightning transaction, or Jose wants to do a Lightning transaction at Fold or somewhere else? Well, then that's where the Lightning network is integrated into this also network of just node to connected node, where it basically says, okay, well, if third party knows Ben but doesn't know Jose, I could still pay third party because Ben is going to be the orator or the route that I'm going to get to that person with. Now, if you zoom this out to thousands and thousands of nodes and big companies with big channels, you can see how you can pretty much pay damn near anybody. And if the channel pipeways are good enough, then you'll be able to get that through. Yeah. And yes, people that route get rewarded. I've heard up and down stories. I've heard there's people making a killing of it. And my personal node, I've probably made 5 sats, if that. It's very low.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of channel management. Yeah. And I think that's the part where, at least to my knowledge of Lightning, is very early and still kind of unfolding.
Gotcha.
But I haven't been keeping up with what's happening on the UI standpoint, and maybe that's been improving.
Yeah.
But there has been some stuff that's been going on lately that's going to change the game. I heard somebody bring up in one of the conversations, and I wanted to talk to this about you because we talk about video versus audio all the time. Video is huge.
Yeah.
Good standpoint. All the things you've been teaching me lately have proven me that video works. Yeah. Fantastic. Cool. I heard a conversation happening during during BitDev, actually, the last BitDev. Audio files over Lightning, full audio files over Lightning channels.
Yeah.
Now, I think of video's nature as it has to get bigger.
Yeah.
Because more pixels have to come in.
So
here's
hit
me on that.
Yeah. So here's what's going on. So video. I mean, all right. We shoot this podcast, and I think it's like 60 gigabytes. We're shooting in 4K.
Sounds about right.
So we're shooting in an H.264 codec. They have H.265, which basically takes more data when recording, and basically smushes it smaller. Yeah. And as we go on, they're trying to make it smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
But you still can't send 60 gigabytes in 5 minutes.
Right. And that's when I go back to where audio and longevity, right? When we think about like worst case scenario, best case scenario where audio is always important to harness and master. Because when I heard this, and I can't do a good job of breaking down how it worked, but they had like a slideshow up.
Yeah.
And it was like,
I like it, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Video's a luxury.
Fair. I like that assessment. But yeah, sometimes, and people listening maybe fall in this, we fall into like, what is our role management? What are we doing on this podcast, or what are we doing, whatever? And man, I can't, that video stuff is just like, because of that, because it's heavy. It's like, you need a right setup. You need the right.
even what was the show we watched on HBO? Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
When they're talking about that stuff.
True.
It's that idea. I mean, isn't that what they were trying to do?
When it streams, is it less though, or is it still a heavy file? It's less, right? Because YouTube chops it up.
It's less.
Yeah. So maybe that can go over a channel, but you're still gonna need to get that file processed in order to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that audio is supreme. They both work harmoniously together, but once again, it just shows this lightweight nature of Bitcoin. This thing where it's like, you want it to be small and as compact as possible, so as many people can get the information as possible.
Yeah.
I even think worst case scenario, imagine you're trying to get an SOS across the world. Imagine it's one of these things where it's like, no, we have been shut down, but we can get this one. You think you're going to get a 5-minute video out there? And if you get it out there, you think they're going to have what it's going to take to rock that video?
Yeah.
Even at 720p, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
For sure. So when I saw Lightning going over, I was like, holy bananas. Another one that they were talking about, if you don't got nothing to bring up on that, is Lightning living in a browser like a Chrome extension. We kind of see that with Moon.
Yeah.
But I think they were saying it in a different fashion. Where it would basically be like a pay-all across everything.
Yeah.
Whereas like wherever there's a place you can tip, wherever there's a place you could have, this extension would already be there to basically say.
Twitter's already talking about Lightning in Twitter.
It'll be soon enough, but what I was listening to was much even probably bigger than they were doing. But yeah. I think Lightning is inevitable on Twitter or Blue Sky. We talked about that before. But the stuff that's going on here, there's a stack of news out there. Shout out, I believe his name is Keon. I could be butchering his name. There's a stack of news out here where it's an aggregated feed. And you could just put your Lightning wallet. I think I did it with my Blue wallet, if I'm not mistaken. If not, I did it with Zeus. But we just connected right there, and he gives it a little cool incentive where you get the first 1,000 sats for free, and you're basically like on a Reddit, just like handing out cash or whatever.
Fire.
But I guess the threads, and Keon could correct me if I'm wrong here, the threads with the most sats in them are the ones that gravitate to the top. So the stuff that's being paid is going to the top.
So that reminds me of Reddit, right? Where like in certain groups you can't comment unless you have enough like respect.
Clout, yeah.
You have to have enough clout to even comment on certain forums. And so like that's how they keep spam bots out. The cash equivalent would be pay $100 to get in this, and then when people post stuff that's beneficial, they should get rewarded in dollars.
But the benefit on that and why it works is because what if I just want to put 10 cents?
Yeah.
Visa's not going to take that transaction.
For sure.
I would have to load like a preset amount. Load 20 into your wallet.
Yeah.
And then that 20 you can use on the platform. And it's like, all right, well, listen, I just want to send them 10 cents because that's all that's left in my Lightning wallet. But that'll get me, a little bit of love or get me something.
Right.
And that's where the beauty of this works out. So
I like it. Super
excited for that stuff that's going out. This is a new service that I thought you would be interested in that I keep hearing. They didn't say any names, and I don't know anything about it anyways. But they host your node. You have the keys of that node on your device, but the node itself is hosted somewhere else.
Gotcha.
So you can have all the benefits of I wrote down a few notes here where they said that the node sleeps until you have to call for it, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And they kept highlighting over and over again that you hold the keys, you hold the keys, you hold the keys.
That's interesting.
So for it's only $200.
Yeah.
But for those saying that they don't want to run their own nodes because of electricity or
whatever, I just don't want to order it, or maybe I don't feel techy enough to do it.
I don't like that because then you got to rely on dudes like me to walk people through it. Listen, it's all right, cool. Well, there's a service for you. There's a service for y'all.
What's the cost?
They didn't talk about that. I think this is just
what do you think it is? $10 a month?
Damn, see, I thought they were going to hit you just because it's new, probably like $50 a month.
I wouldn't do that.
Oh, maybe they tier it. How often do you need to?
Yeah, there has to be a tier.
Well, there's a lot of people, like you said, that are trying to get big channels open, right?
Sure.
So it's like, if I got like 5 Bitcoin that I want to put up and this company offers me a benefit for it, and I own the keys, right, which is like the biggest thing here.
Yeah, you're kind of outsourcing.
Yeah, but I don't know how they set up a node and give you the keys without them knowing that.
I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, look into it.
Actually, I could see where you do the setup on your end, but you SSH into the node. Like they give you an SSH address.
Gotcha.
You connect to that node, but the setup actually happens on your end, so they don't see your keys and all that. I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the benefit is of not having your own node.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, maybe there is. There's a bunch of reasons, but that's pretty cool because then you could get the benefits of the Lightning Network and not have to worry about, I guess, putting the node together. It's not really that hard. But yeah, I thought those were interesting concepts built around Lightning. The one that obviously stuck out to me was the audio one.
Yeah.
It was a great slideshow that I was watching, but just the slideshow itself, it was like, oh, I could send like full albums eventually for like a certain set fee tied to it, and I think that's incredible. There was a gentleman that was making an argument there for smart contracts the smart way. That was a presentation that I saw, which is like, Bitcoin can still be flexible enough to do, I guess, Ethereum style smart contracts, but do them the correct way because of the substructure that's built on Bitcoin, the consensus.
Now, is that going to be like layer 3? Or is that layer 2?
There was a damn it, I blanked on the name. There was the team, let's see if I can remember. There was the team there that's actually working on layer 3. They didn't speak much about it. I don't know much about it itself, but I know layer 3 is being worked on. Maybe because
listen, if layer 3 adds utility, layer 2 Lightning adds speed, what do I need anything else for if I can literally build any utility, whether it's contracts, smart contracts, I don't know, multi-sig kind of agreements? Like if all that can be done on layer 3, what is the need for any other coin?
Go ask the other coin people. I don't know.
That's where I'm at.
Well, that's where we've been at with Bitcoin from the very beginning.
Yeah.
It's like when you think about multi-sig, it's probably the strongest smart contract of all time. It verifies that through a quorum of keys, we've agreed to a certain agreement from the very beginning. Even if you change your mind on the agreement, you can't change your mind that there's only 2 of 3 keys. So it's like, so we talk about smart contracts, and we've been saying we didn't know anything about this layer 3 stuff that's coming out, and I think we should do an episode on layer 3 because there is some good stuff happening.
Let's talk about
it. I just don't see the benefit of these other smart contracts when it's like, well, we really just need to agree on the principle, and the principle is who's the authority here, or where's the exchange happening, and then figure out a quorum to work with that. There's better stuff than multi-sig, but yeah, I think multi-sig solves the problem for the most part if you could do it the right way. So super stuff going on with Lightning. Lightning, I think, is the next
practical examples for Lightning.
Yeah,
I'll give you 2 scenarios. In El Salvador, Bitcoin's about to be legal tender.
Yep.
And so your pupusa vendor on the street or whatever vendor will be able to put up a Lightning QR code.
Yep.
And you'll be able to load up a Strike app, scan that code, pay them in USD from your bank, and it immediately converts to Bitcoin for them. They can convert to USD or they can hold Bitcoin. Yep. That's case 1. Case 2 is I'm dealing with an editor from across the world who's like, okay, you can pay me Western Union, you can pay me through a new PayPal international company, or you can pay me through this other thing. In each case, they're going to take a nice fee of maybe 4%, 5%. And so something like Lightning, I mean, I told him, I was like, hey, do you have access to Mun Wallet or like a Blue Wallet?
Yep.
And if he can get that, I can just pay him literally in USD from Strike to Lightning, or I can pay him in Bitcoin.
Yeah,
it cuts out this middleman that's, taking away 5% of his profits.
Yeah, it's become the best way. This is the next problem that we need to solve, and we're going to have to cut this episode short, but this is the next problem that we actually need to solve, and that is how do we spend our Bitcoin the right way? And I think the best example of is not actually spend it, but just turn money. Yeah. But there's problems with that because of KYC on-ramping and stuff like that in order to that. But yes, that's possible.
Last example, the Afghanistan situation, you got Western Union who puts up a post and says, oh, by the way, there's some crazy stuff going on out here. We're actually going to suspend operations right now. So what happens when someone from out there is depending on remittance from someone in America or somewhere else?
Yeah.
Western Union just gives them the finger in a time of need. Like, that's insane to me.
And the Lightning Network makes sure that they could take action fast. Yeah. Because we people have been doing that with Bitcoin Network for a very long time now. Yeah. But is that in that emergency situation, how can they act fast?
Right.
If they had a Mun Wallet or a Strike wallet on the other end, they'll be able to convert it to their currency on the fly. I saw Jack Mallers do it to Nigeria.
Yeah, instantly.
Which was a company that's working on the Cash App version of their local system. So they're already ahead of Cash App because they have Lightning integrated in their end. But it's only possible by having to have that instant settlement because we need instant settlement to take action right away. Mm-hmm. Why lose 4% as a freelancer when you can get literally there is fees with Lightning, but they're so nominal that I don't even think you can even incorporate them in budgeting.
Yeah,
it's like 5 cents. It's some ridiculous numbers. Yeah. So, guys, as always, I don't know if Ben got anything quickly to add on here. We got to run, but we're gonna keep coming back to back, week to week. depending, guys, reach out to us in the comments. Give us information that you guys want to learn about. I think this basics few episodes have been really cool. The price is going to swing up, so we may shift eventually away from basics to the up and coming news, because that's important to cover too. And it's everlasting. You grow, I grow, we all grow together. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's very important. Leave a comment. If you're listening on all your favorite podcast platforms, leave a comment. It helps us float up. If you're on any other Lightning-powered apps we just talked about now, feel free to stream some sets. And if you do donate, check out the email in the comments and let us know that you donated so we could give you a shout-out. That's super important. As always, we appreciate you guys. We're going to check you guys next week. Ben?
That's a wrap, bro.
Later, brother.
Peace.
All right, guys.